My name is Beth Todgham, and I'm the Nashua Community Coordinator for Southern New Hampshire Services. I also have an additional title called Seniors Count Facilitator for the City of Nashua. And this is the next in the series of workshops that we've been doing literally all year here at the Senior Activity Center. And I'm very pleased to introduce Alice Cassidy. She's a social worker from the Greater Nashua Mental Health Center at Community Council, and she's here to talk about stress in the holidays and how to just make it a pleasant experience and to have a good time this holiday season. So I want to thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to Alice.
Thank you very much. We have 3, 6, 8 guests here, so once in a while I may refer to them and to sort of help me along with this and make sure that I'm on the right track. We're talking about stress during the holidays today because the holidays do tend to be a stressful time. When I came in at the beginning, I talked to the 2 gentlemen and they said, "What stress?" And then as soon as the women came in, it's like, oh, I can't even describe it. And I think that's probably the case for all of us, is that there are some of us who just accept what's going on, and then there are others of us who sort of, for whom, let's put it this way, for whom stress is contagious. And we sort of try to do our best. When you're seniors, what we are realizing now in today's society is that there are almost 3 categories of seniors, as Arlene Kershaw came up with this wonderful quote. There are 3 levels of seniors. The go-go's, you probably know who you are. They're the ones who are really at the planning stage of these holiday specials. There are the slow-go's that are a little difficult to recognize because they don't like to let anybody know that they're slow-go's. And then there are the no-go's, and those are the people that you might have to visit in nursing homes, or the people that are pretty much confined to their housing, wherever that might be. So sometimes, I think I'm going to be I'm also talking to a broad range of audience. There are people in this room, I believe, who are caregivers. There are also people who are the planners of the holiday experiences, and then there are people who are the receivers of holiday experiences. So let me just start by asking you what your expectations are about the holidays, because that's one of the most important things, and that is figuring out what do we expect and what do we want and need for the holiday. And I'm going to put that right up here on the board. Ex-teacher that I am. Can anybody mention any expectations that you might have of the holidays? To be with family. Yes, very good. That's a wonderful one. And it comes with its ups and downs, doesn't it? Any other expectations? Any other needs about the holidays?
Can I say stay within my budget?
Ah, good. To stay within your budget, especially in these tough financial times. Any other ones?
Certain types of food.
Food, yes, yes. There are a lot of traditions, especially around food, that some people like to make sure that certain foods are presented, like turkey, for example. Sometimes there are people who don't like turkey, and so you can get into all kinds of stressful situations around food. But we also tend to have our own expectations about food. Like for myself, I love turkey sandwiches. And if I go to somebody else's house, sometimes it's hard to have enough turkey for a turkey sandwich over the weekend. Anybody else come up with any others?
I hope that the gifts the family receives are well appreciated.
Yes.
Or at least usable.
Yes, exactly. Yes, to make other people in the family happy, whether it be a gift or it be being the hostess. Very good. Now, any others? Okay. We are trained as children that these 2 days, Thanksgiving, anybody who celebrates Hanukkah? Or Kwanzaa? No. So we can probably, there may be listeners who celebrate Hanukkah as well. So we're trained as children that these holidays should meet our needs. And I think lots of times it's important to pay attention to the fact that we will feel resentful and we will feel disappointed if those needs aren't met. So it's important to ask, what would you like? What is your particular need over the holiday? Plan to get it. Provide it for yourself and provide it for other people. And that's going to be the subject of our talk today. Sometimes people want rest, good food, family traditions, see family you haven't seen before, and connect with friends or families or celebrate. Now, the first thing, because I'm from a mental health center, the first thing I'm going to do is ask the question, or let you answer the question, how do you know what it is you want? Is that a problem for any of us? It can become a big problem for me, I can tell you. It can become a big problem for some of the clients that I work with. And I have a special technique that I think is really important. And the first thing that I would ask you to do is observe. Now, when I say observe, I mean observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, observe any kind of sensations that come into your mind during this holiday season. I'll give you an example, though it's a pretty personal one, but it's a good example. I had a sore on the side of my leg, and I've had it for ages, and I keep saying, oh, I should ask the doctor about this. And so finally, I had a doctor's appointment, and I said to myself, okay, I have to remember to ask him. And on the way up to the doctor's appointment, because I'm trained to observe my thoughts, I was thinking, I hope he doesn't biopsy this, because if he biopsies it, it'll never heal. And I was almost feeling sort of angry about it. So when I got into my appointment, I asked him if he'd look at it, and then I said, you know what I was thinking on the way up? That I hoped you don't biopsy it, because if you do, I'll never get it to heal. That was the only telling piece of information that I could give him. I didn't want to be mean about it or angry about it or anything else, but I did want to convey, and he said to me, that's the most important piece. If it doesn't heal, it's important for us to look at, and I'm going to send you to a dermatologist. But that thought sort of came into my mind in a way that I would have pushed away. It's like, I'm not going to go tell him that. I need to tell him that. The same thing is going to happen to you over holidays. You're going to have thoughts that come into your head, and it's important to pay attention to them. One thought I thought of is, I would love to push a sock down Aunt Mary's throat. Well, it's not a very polite thought for anybody to have, but it's telling. It says that Aunt Mary might have a problem keeping time boundaries at the dinner table. And I'm just like, oh, that's an awful thing to think, and then you push it out of your head. However, if you pay attention to it, what you're saying, what you realize is the family might have a problem with Aunt Mary, and Aunt Mary might have a problem, and you definitely have a problem with Aunt Mary. So the next word that we're going to use is put words on. And that's actually what I just said, is when you can put words on the thought and not, let's see, I'll put be non-judgmental. So what you do is you just accept the thought as it comes into your head, exactly the way it comes in. I want to stuff a sock down her throat. And you don't even want to think that, because it's like, oh God, that's terrible. But remember that it's telling. It's like my leg. My My thought about my leg told the doctor something. My thought about Aunt Mary says, maybe I could do something about this. And then we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I'll try to keep Aunt Mary in mind through the talk, all right? Okay, and then the next thing that you're going to do, first of all, don't judge those thoughts. Accept them no matter what they are. I want to kill them. I want to, whatever they are, keep in mind it tells you something. Imagine yourself like the doctor, that he's gathering information. Keep in mind that over the course of history, emotions were not valued. Only rational thinking was valued. So as we grow into an evolutionary stage in which we want to be more conscious and make better decisions, we want to use those. We don't want to, the Greeks and the Romans kind of said, oh, leave the women over there, they have emotions. We don't want anything to do with them. We'll just talk about rational. If you don't use your rational mind and your emotional mind, you can't make a good decision. I'm going to do this little. Okay, that's rational thinking. That's emotional thinking. And in here is wise mind. So only when those two overlap do we have the wisdom to make good decisions, okay? Let me catch up to where I am here. Okay, so you've observed your thoughts, you put them into words, you haven't judged them. You haven't said they're good, they're bad, they're anything. They're just information coming into your head. The fourth one is be effective. So we have Aunt Mary. And there are lots of things that you can do to be effective about Aunt Mary. You can assign a couple of your children to spend some time with her so that she has enough time to talk. You can plan events at the table so that she has a better understanding of how long she has to talk. You can bring her only for dessert. You can, whatever. But the goal is to be effective. And be effective for yourself, but don't lose the fact that Aunt Mary wants to have something too. Okay? Does that all make sense to everybody? Okay. So let's pare these down to Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah. Your needs might be, again, family, traditional foods, relaxation, fun, and rituals. So let's take one at a time. Being with family is probably a good example of Aunt Mary. And I think what I'm going to do is just talk about ways to be effective. Does that make sense? Okay. Being effective, oftentimes you have a family member that's difficult, like Aunt Mary, or somebody who drinks too much, or somebody who doesn't want to be there. One of the most effective things I learned over the course of my studies was it's often helpful to assign somebody to the difficult person. Have somebody that likes being with them and say, can you spend more time with Uncle John, because we know that he's probably going to drink a little bit too much. Or would you make his drinks for him so that you can water them down a bit? Or can you distract him? But you come up with something loving and effective. All right? Now, you had this thought that you probably wanted to muzzle him or something, but you become effective about it. You plan ahead. With Aunt Mary, you might want to have some kind of a ritual at the table where people are sharing memories, because she has a lot of memories to contribute. Sometimes you can put a place card at the table, and on the back or put an envelope on the table, and in the envelope put somebody's name, and have each person on the back of the card put something that they're thankful for regarding this person. So you might have Uncle John say, I remember when I was a little girl and Uncle John took me to the rodeo. I'd never been to a rodeo in my life. And then this person talks all about the rodeo. And then somebody else gets Aunt Mary. And the person who gets her says, I remember when I was a little girl and I stayed overnight at Aunt Mary's. And she gave me my first cup of tea. And it was so nice to just sit down. Every time I have a cup of tea, I think of Aunt Mary. So it gives people a chance to kind of share memories, okay? Another thing is traditional foods. One of the things about older adults is that they have the treasures of the family. They have the old recipes. My grandmother used to make apple pies, and she had a special way of making pie crust with lard. And so one of my cousins, at Thanksgiving, gave us a copy of her recipe, because actually my aunt was the only one who really knew the recipe, because there weren't any measurements. So she figured out the measurements, and she gave each one of us. Another time, my brother, I think, gave us the recipe for my mother's potato salad. And so all of those food traditions, sometimes it's fun just to bring recipes for each one of them, or to talk about what the recipes are, so that they can be carried down the family. Another thing is relaxation. I remember when I was working full-time, and, well, I'm still working full-time, but I'm less stressed now. I remember that all I wanted to do was rest. I didn't really even want to go to a Thanksgiving party. And it was just so hard for me. So what I ended up doing was just making a time that I would be there, but also deciding on a time that I would leave, because I listen all day for my work. And so I was too tired to listen on Thanksgiving. For me, I liked it because it was a day off. And so I would make kind of dates with each one of the family members that I wanted to talk to, and I met with them. I went to visit them another time, and then I left somewhat early and went home and relaxed, because it was just too stressful for me. The thought that went through my mind is, if I hear another person talking, I'm going to scream. And so I just made some kind of an effective plan. For other people, a lot of older adults, they're living by themselves, right? And so they can't wait to have somebody to listen to them. And it actually worked out better for me to go to visit some of my older relatives than it was to talk to them at the holiday party. Having a different tradition around Thanksgiving. Sometimes families are all working, they're all busy, and you might want to have people over for Thanksgiving, for turkey sandwiches or something, or some kind of an enjoyable thing. Fun is often an expectation. A lot of people sit and watch the football game as a way of having fun, but you can schedule time to read quietly, to go for a walk as a group, to watch a TV program together, to do games, and one of the things that I've heard people doing a lot is to just do a potluck for Thanksgiving, so everybody brings something. It's a good way of training your children to pick up the ball and carry it, so that you're just making the turkey and everybody else brings something. Does anybody else have any other traditions that they have kind of changed over the years? Nothing? Okay.
I think in my family, we do all of the things we've just listed, and I think that's what makes time go by, and everybody's happy. The little children can be doing something, and the adults are doing something else. And in my family, it was always the women who did the cooking and the boys who did the dishes.
That's a good tradition, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have a nice big family, don't you? So you have Anybody else think of any others?
I can think of a situation, and maybe just my situation, but welcoming somebody new into the family. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's a new significant other or whatever, that how to, like, to me, that could be stressful because it's a whole new ball of wax and different stresses. But any suggestions on that?
Yes, one of the I do a lot of groups, and one of the things that we do is we always introduce each other first, and then we introduce new members. And then I usually come up with some kind of a question. The question I usually come up with is, what do you like about coming to group? Because they're all there and they come consistently. And so it's a good way of kind of getting people acclimated to group. But for Thanksgiving, you can say, what were the Thanksgiving traditions in your family? What are the traditions in our family that people enjoy and don't enjoy? Have the relative introduce the significant other, and the significant other introduce the relative. And you can almost make it a game, like what's the best thing you like about this person and the worst? And lots of times, I can tell you from my point of view as a mental health worker, they are so closely related that it's uncanny. For example, I tend to be very generous with my time. I'm incredibly flexible, but I'm also incredibly disorganized. You almost can't get one without the other. If I weren't so disorganized, I don't think I could be so flexible. So lots of times, that can kind of break the ice a little. The funniest thing that's happened since you started dating, or the funniest things, some of the funniest things that happened in our family. But think about some kind of a fun discussion to have. I think sometimes that can break the ice. Anybody else have any ideas? Nope. Have you had it happen in your family yet? Nope, just Beth, huh? Okay. Good luck, Beth. If you need any other ideas, call me. Then I think this sort of goes into the next one, which is rituals. And I already told you about making the place cards, or another thing that we did that will go more with the Christmas one is making a little gift box or a little envelope decorated like a gift, and just say, what's the gift that this person brings to our family? And then write it on a little piece of paper, and then everybody puts it in the box, and then that's given to each person at the table as a present. I often do it in my groups, and they love it, because lots of times you don't get a whole lot of kind of praise for who you are or what you are. And I think in holiday families, that's like, and traditions, that's kind of one of the things that people hope for the most, is to be valued and people to think that they're special. Let's see, another one, especially for older adults, is if you share the guest list with everybody who's coming and bring a favorite memory. That's so helpful, because the older adults in our families are the ones who have the memories. And hopefully people will take time, or they'll bring something that, I can remember a friend of mine stopped me one day, and she was beginning to get Alzheimer's. And she brought a picture of her whole family. It was like this long, when her mother and father were young. And so she had this incredible sense of belonging to a whole huge family. And she ran it off, or she had copies made, and she gave them to all the family members. And what a treasure to have. So lots of times we as older people have things that some of the younger people would love to have. Pictures of grandparents and great-grandparents and things like that. Have teenagers create a game for everybody to play. What's it like? Carol's looking, going, oh, I don't know that I like that one, says Carol. But just, it can be sort of a question and answer game. And it can be like, what's it like to use a cell phone and text and Twitter? What's that like? And then for older adults, then the teenager might say, how did you get around when you were children? Or what was it like to, what was your family home like when you were little? And then, and just kind of have one side and the other trying to find out as much information from each other as possible. Would that work in your family, Carol? It might? Okay. All right. It's been a while since I've been around teenagers, so when I looked at your face, I wasn't quite sure. Let's see. And the other one I remember from being a child is we were the oldest grandchildren, or I was the oldest grandchild. And I used to, my mother and father would have us put on a play or a show every time we had guests. And I remember I could sing, so that worked out all right. My brother played the piano, so that worked out all right. But the thing I remember best is my sister, who didn't have talents along that line. She was the one who was going to be hosting the Thanksgiving dinners and all those things, but entertainment was not her specialty until we found out that she loved to tell stories. So as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, she would just get up and spontaneously tell the story that would go on, and we would be just rolling on the floor listening to her. It was just so much fun, and I still remember that. Does anybody else have ideas of things that have worked in your family? Can you imagine this as creating a little less stress? Because that was actually our goal. Can you imagine? Yes? Okay. All right. Now I'm going to just talk about a few extra things. Like, one of the things I'm aware of is that there are a lot of caregivers in the audience, probably. And I'd like to talk about that aspect of the holiday season. There are some things you can do to help that be less stressful. One is to share the care. Sometimes an older adult is coming, somebody who probably wouldn't be able to come the following year. And one of the suggestions I would make is to plan ahead and share the care of that loved one, so that people have an hour or so to sit with that loved one and help that loved one with whatever she needs or he needs during that time, and give the caregiver a break, because sometimes those particular circumstances are very hard for caregivers, and it's hard for caregivers to sort of let people know how stressful their job is. Ask them what they would like to do. Whoops, excuse me, I skipped into the wrong one. Talk to the caregivers about her needs and his experiences, because lots of times that's the only time, you'll see the caregiver to help negotiate. If you're a caregiver, take a rest. Remember when you had your children and you had to learn to let somebody else hold them or let somebody else take care of them. If this was hard for you at that time, it's probably still going to be hard for you as a caregiver to let other people share that with you. Sometimes just writing a letter each time, updating the family on what's happening with the loved one, and then asking if there's anything that you could help with. A friend of mine recently was helping to take care of her husband's mother, who was in her 90s. And the daughter lived with this woman, and she was, she did a lot of the caregiving. And one day she asked in an email if somebody could help her out. And so my friend went down every Thursday and stayed with her mother-in-law for about 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon, so that her sister-in-law could go out. And she said, I just got to know her in a very different way. And when she did die, she said, I really felt as though those memories were very special. But the caregiver needed to let people in and allow people to find a way that would be helpful. So that was one example that I could think of. And I guess that's a good example of discussing your needs in an effective manner. And then others in the family need to help. It would be helpful if others in the family could help the caregivers express their needs as well. Then older family members is another. They may not, one of the things I've learned is older family members may not be able to do what they could do last year. I have a lady for whom it's becoming much more difficult to walk. But it isn't apparent. She has a cane, but it's not apparent just how difficult it is for her to do that. And so she doesn't want to go to her family's house anymore. But the family really found it difficult to recognize that she couldn't park the car like she always did, walk up the road or they didn't realize that she needed a ride and that she needed a specific time to be there, that she couldn't handle the whole thing. And so having a conversation with older members, and as older members to have a conversation with our family and friends and say, you know, I can't do this the same way I did it last year. I really need your help. And lots of times people respond really nicely to that. Also ask for certain things, like you may need certain foods, you may need help. Part of the trick is to observe, but the other part is for the older person to be able to ask. And I know it's not something that we do very easily. Okay? The other special category about that is grief. The only thing I can tell you about grief in a family is be gentle with one another and be thoughtful, be non-judgmental. Different people need different things. I remember one family being very upset because the family member needed to have a place setting for the person who had gone. And other people were sort of freaked out by that. And, you know, you can talk about it, and you can. Has anybody experienced that? No. I'm looking at a few people. You have? Yeah. Some people say, oh my God, that would be horrible. But if you can just accept it very gently. And the other thing is, as a member of the family, you can introduce other things like memories of the past and memories of the future. What do we think this family is going to be like in 30 years or 20 years? So just kind of have the conversation around the loved one if that's, you know, if that's what the person needs, but also include other things that have future. And then you can also call that loved one and say, is there anything that we can do to make this holiday easier for you? Maybe have it at a different house, or do you want to go out to eat, or what would you like to do that would help this holiday be easier? The other thing that I wanted to do, especially around Thanksgiving, is there are many people who spend Thanksgiving alone. And we have a wonderful resource here in Nashua called the Hudson, well, it's actually in Hudson, the Hudson Fish and Game. And they have a telephone number that's going to be listed, and I don't think I even have it, but it will be up on the screen for you. And I think you have it, right.
No, it's gone.
Mike might have it. Mike might have it. Yeah, it's okay. Mike might have it. Or Beth. Oh, that's it. You have the one about me and not the one about. Okay. Aha, there it is. Okay. I might take it if you don't mind, Mike. Thanks, Marie. Okay. If the Hudson Fish and Game since 1988 has been preparing meals for seniors at Thanksgiving. 90% of their the food they give out is to seniors. And if you call Karen at 889-1501, she will either tell you where you can go for a Thanksgiving meal, because they prepare a meal and guests come, but they also deliver to your home. And so you can, it's deliver or go by meal. She said in 1988 they had 8 turkeys. Last year they had 130 turkeys. So you can imagine how that's grown. And so maybe you can also call her if you want to volunteer. Sister Monique?
Also, I'm a senior companion, and I visit people that call and ask for these, and they'll even ask them, how many would you like? You
right.
say 2, 3, you know you're going to be alone.
That's
they'll
right.
Deliver, and, at least you have some for a couple of days.
That's
if
right.
You are alone.
That's right, yeah. Or you can invite somebody. One of the things I often suggest to clients that I see at senior residences is that they put up a sign on the bulletin board and say, is there anybody else who's going to have Thanksgiving dinner alone? Because we can have it down in the kitchen or in the dining room, or you can come to my apartment and I'm going to order food from the Hudson Fish and Game and they'll deliver it for us. But see if you can get people to come. And then plan some events so that you'll get to, plan some table activities so you'll get to know each other. Okay? Now I'm going to just move to Christmas, and I think I actually have about 5 minutes.
Marie wanted to know the telephone number.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 889-1501, and you'll be talking to Karen. Okay. The other special thing about Christmas, I think, is gifts. And a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that. Older adults, most of my clients say, I don't give gifts anymore. And I often find that a little bit sad because I think we can be more creative about the way we give gifts. Older adults, like I said before, have wonderful memories. They have pictures, they have stories, they have food recipes. So I think as the economy gets worse, we may all be looking for things that cost less. And seniors, one of the things that seniors have that other people don't have is time. What they don't have is money. So I know a friend of mine gave me a scone recipe, and I think I'm going to be making scones the whole couple of days before Christmas because they're wonderful, and I'll include a copy of the recipe. And I think it's more enjoyable. Some people get together as a group. Sister Monique and I get together as a group, and we often do donations. And everybody will contribute $10 or $20, and then we'll decide each year who we would like to give the donation to. And then one time, for a while, we did a gift that it was only $1. You had to spend $1, and boy, that was hard just to have. But after a while, we had 12 and 15 people coming to Thanksgiving, so then it was just as expensive. So, but it was a fun thing. Now we're kind of re-gifting. What are the things that you have? Because as older adults, we're trying to figure out what to do with all the things that we have. So re-gifting is another really good example. Some people do Yankee swaps, and that's often a fun thing, especially if somebody brings something real outlandish and it gets passed around every year. Homemade gifts are another thing. One thing that I ran into it was a very nice experience for me is I have a lot of friends and I make a lot of friends over time. And lots of times it's hard to figure out, what are you going to do around Christmas? Should I exchange gifts, not exchange gifts? And I'm getting better, I think, at asking, would you like to exchange gifts this year, or would you like to just go out for lunch, or what would you like to do? This friend of mine said, I do homemade gifts. I said, ooh, that's a great idea. So she made me this beautiful scarf, and I made her a set of stationery. And we were both very happy with what we had. So that's another, think of the hobbies that you have and think of things that you might like to do and ask.
I think another thing that would be helpful for the seniors, is say, I will help you with your Christmas cards or mailings.
That's
or,
right.
I give you a couple of hours to do some housework.
That's right,
or
yeah.
some ironing or
Right.
whatever. And
Right.
that, to them, it's a gift because take
That's
it.
right. That's right. Some of your teenage grandchildren can make up little gift certificates and then just write 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week with help with shopping. I'll cook one meal a month for you, or come over to the house for supper when I'll do all kinds of things. There are a million things that probably people would love to have done, right? I'll help clean out the branches from the yard after the storm. Okay. A trip to a favorite place is another thing that oftentimes people would like, and it's something that you'd probably enjoy too. And then, is there anything else about Christmas that you feel, a lot of what we talked about at Thanksgiving applied to Christmas, but then I think the only difference in Hanukkah, and the only difference is the gift giving. Anybody have any questions about that?
Well, one of the things, Alice, in terms of the holidays, some of us have lost loved ones right around then. I'm the special category because my father died on Christmas.
Oh.
So, and he was long-lived and he had been blessed with a good life, so he was very fortunate. But for some of us, we've had that unique experience. And the thing, particularly with Christmas, because it's so commercial, it starts like in September.
That's right. That's
And
right.
ends
It
like
lasts
January or
forever.
February.
So you get all these memories spread out over this huge amount of time,
So
right?
it's there, and the Christmas carols run on for a long, long time, or, you know. So that's something, it makes me understand too, some people do not celebrate Christmas.
That's right.
So for those folks, they're confronting this. So it's just seeing things from a different perspective. And my father would not have wanted to ruin Christmas for me. It's different. I still celebrate Christmas, but I'm not the only one kind of in that situation. There
That's right.
are others.
That's right.
And it's just, if you haven't dealt with it as well as you can, you're going to see it for maybe 5 months.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If I know you a bit, are you also an only child?
I am.
That's what I thought, right? Yeah.
Right.
And I think that makes it different too, because when you have a family or when you have brothers and sisters, you can come up with a different tradition. When you're the only child, lots of times you didn't have anybody to share that grief with because you were the only one with that perspective.
Right. My father had given me a number of gifts, but one of the gifts he gave me 4.5 years before his sudden passing, he died in his sleep.
Suddenly, oh wow.
Was we had pre-planned his funeral.
Oh.
And he was my surviving parent. And he had heard about this, and I encouraged him, and pretty much the obituary was nearly written. We didn't know at the time how this would play out, but fortunately for me, that day wearing my candy cane sweater, that this had already been done, and then the arrangements could be made because, yes, I am an only child, and I'm also married to an only child, so I have a very small family.
Right, yeah.
So some of
Yeah.
us have these very unique experiences.
That's
but
right, yeah.
I believe I'm the poster child for planning your funeral ahead.
Right, yes, absolutely.
Because otherwise, I would have been, plus I live 100 miles from where
He
my
died.
father was. So, but things were in place. So that's just something that maybe I'm the only one in this room who's kind of had that type of experience. But I have encountered a couple of others that it's just things happen. It just happened to be that day.
Exactly, yeah.
But, you know, you just do what you need to do.
Yeah. I'm a really firm believer in groups. And one of the nice things about groups is gathering together with people who have had like experiences. And if you know a couple of others, what you might want to do is just do kind of a get-together, like a little meal together or something like that, and just sort of talk about what it's like.
Sort of have an informal one in a sense. I have a daughter-in-law who has 2 other people in her family who have lost someone on Christmas.
Yes, yeah.
An aunt and an uncle by
Yeah.
marriage. So
Yeah.
what would you think statistically to have
I know.
3 people who get together on Christmas time who
Yeah.
lost a parent on Christmas?
Yeah. You may want to do a separate ritual, some kind of a really special ritual that you share. Maybe it's been long enough so that it isn't quite raw, but it's a short enough time to have a lot of memories and to share memories with each other. And you might want to, what I would say is use this one, use all of those, and try to be effective about what you want to do. Plan your holidays to meet your needs. And if your need is to talk about your loved one, or if your need is to share experiences because you don't have that with brothers and sisters. I know as an older adult, it amazes me to get together with my cousins, because we all had, our experiences were so similar. And for me to get together with my brother, because our experiences, and to talk about our experience from the point of view of being an older adult, as opposed to thinking about them alone as children. So you might just want to really try to be as effective and try to really honor what you're thinking. Anybody else have any other questions, or are we out of time, Beth? You okay? Okay, good. We started off the talk discussing expectations, and I think it's so important to know what they are, and to honor them, but to really do these things so that they don't have too much place in your plans, but they also have the place that you need them to have. So, any other questions? That might have sounded like the final thing, but I have a better one. So I'm going to read it. The holidays are not always enjoyable. We have to make them that way by wise decision making and wise choices. Observe your thoughts and feelings to help you to include your needs for enjoyment during the holidays. Pay attention to what you like and what you don't like. Think of ways to effectively include your needs in your planning and help others accommodate those needs by discussing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. I found that interesting, I want to say enjoyable, but informative as well. And I want to thank you all for coming and let you know that we do this every month. And in December, on the 12th, we'll be back here at the Senior Activity Center, and we'll have a representative from next door, which is the Center for, I can't say it, Physical Therapy and Exercise, talking about balance issues and flexibility. So if you'd like to join us that day, that would be wonderful. And also, we are filmed each month, and you can go to the Nashua website and click on the link to the community television, and you can either watch these shows, this one or other ones that we've had online, and see what other subjects we've covered. On the table over there, there's a flyer about next month's workshop, and also a list of the different programs we have and how to find them on the internet. So thank you again for coming.